The first person who made me understand something was wrong wasn't my family. It was a stranger. I was standing near the reception hall entrance, adjusting the strap of my heels, trying to ignore how nervous I felt walking into a room full of relatives I hadn't seen in months. The doors opened. Music poured out, laughter, glasses clinking. That warm wedding noise that usually makes people feel welcome. I stepped inside smiling, and immediately felt it. That subtle shift in atmosphere. Conversations didn't stop completely, but they softened. Eyes followed me longer than normal. Not curious, not happy, careful. A woman I didn't recognize leaned toward another guest and whispered something while looking directly at me. They both looked away quickly. I told myself I was imagining it. Weddings are emotional. People stare. Normal. Then the event coordinator approached me, professional smile, tablet in hand. "Hi, can I help you find your seat?" Relief washed over me. "Yes, please, I'm with the bride's family." She searched the list, scrolled again. Her smile faded slightly. "Can you spell your last name?" I did. She checked again. Long pause. Then she said something that rearranged my entire reality. "I'm sorry, I don't have you assigned to a table." I laughed automatically. "That's impossible. My whole family's here." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I was informed you might not be staying for dinner." My brain stalled. "Informed by who?" She glanced across the room, toward my parents' table. Except their chairs were empty. My mother's purse gone, my father's jacket gone. Melissa's seat empty. They weren't late. They weren't in the restroom. They had already left without telling me. And in that exact moment, a terrifying thought appeared. They didn't forget me. They expected me not to belong here. I stepped outside pretending to answer a phone call. My hands shook as I texted my mom. "Where are you? Delivered. Read. No reply." I called Melissa. Voicemail. I tried my dad. Straight to voicemail. That's when memories from the past 2 weeks started replaying differently. My mom insisting I drive alone. Melissa asking 3 separate times what time I'd arrive. My aunt suddenly asking if I was doing okay emotionally. At the time, I thought they were being caring. Now it felt like surveillance. And one question kept growing louder. What story had they told about me before today? Because strangers weren't confused. They were prepared. Prepared for something involving me. Something I didn't know existed. Before I keep going, I want to say something quickly. If you've ever been misunderstood by people who were supposed to know you best, you'll probably understand this story more than you expect. If you do, subscribe to Marrianne Tales and tell me where you're watching from tonight and what time is it. Now, let me rewind, because this wedding didn't start the betrayal. It revealed one that had been building for years. I grew up believing my role in the family was simple: don't cause problems. My mother loved harmony. My father loved quiet, and I learned early that approval came from being easy. Melissa, my younger sister, was the opposite. She was loud, funny, magnetic. When she entered a room, attention followed naturally. Relatives described her as special. I was described as sweet. It took me years to understand those weren't equal compliments. Every achievement of mine felt practical. Every achievement of hers felt celebrated. If I succeeded, it was expected. If she succeeded, it was extraordinary. One Thanksgiving, my mom said while laughing, "You'll always land on your feet. Melissa needs more support." Everyone nodded. I nodded too. I didn't realize support was being redistributed away from me. The first time I sensed Melissa changing was after her engagement. She began telling stories about our childhood differently. At dinners, she'd joke, "You were always jealous of me growing up." I laughed because it sounded absurd, but people laughed with her, and laughter slowly rewrites memory. Little comments started appearing. "You're very sensitive, aren't you? You take things personally. You overthink." Labels formed quietly. No arguments, no confrontations, just gradual definition. 2 weeks before the wedding, Melissa invited me for coffee. She watched me carefully while stirring her drink. "Are you happy with where your life is?" It sounded harmless, but something underneath felt like evaluation. "I'm okay," I said. She nodded slowly. "You know, sometimes people struggle when others move ahead." I laughed awkwardly. "Are we having a therapy session?" She smiled, but didn't laugh. Looking back, that wasn't a sister checking in. It was someone gathering emotional evidence. The week before the wedding, small things changed. My mom called daily, not to chat, to confirm logistics, what time I'd arrive, where I'd sit, whether I felt stressed. My dad reminded me twice, let's keep everything peaceful. Peaceful from what? Nothing had happened. Except apparently something had, just not in conversations I was included in. Standing outside that reception hall, it finally hit me. My family wasn't reacting to me. They were reacting to a version of me created somewhere else, a version I had never met, and everyone except me already knew her. About 3 weeks before the wedding, our family group chat changed. Nothing dramatic happened. That was the strange part. No fights, no arguments, just silence whenever I spoke. My aunt would send photos. Melissa would react instantly. My parents replied with heart emojis. I'd comment something normal, can't wait to see everyone. And suddenly the conversation stopped, then restarted hours later on a different topic. At first I assumed coincidence, but after it happened 5 or 6 times, a feeling settled in my chest I couldn't explain. It felt like walking into a room right after people stopped talking about you. One night my mom called unusually late. Her voice sounded careful, too gentle. "Honey, how are you doing emotionally these days?" I laughed lightly. "I'm fine. Why?" Long pause. "Well, weddings can bring up feelings." "What feelings?" Another pause. She changed the subject. Asked about work, asked about traffic, ended the call quickly. I remember staring at my phone thinking she wasn't checking on me. She was checking a rumor. But I didn't know what rumor existed yet. Melissa began telling small stories about me in front of relatives. Never cruel, never obvious, just slightly distorted. At a family brunch, she laughed and said, "Remember when you got upset because I got into a better college?" I blinked. "That never happened." She smiled sweetly. "Oh, maybe I remember it differently." Everyone laughed, and I laughed too, because correcting small lies in public always makes you look defensive, and defensive people look guilty. That was the first time I unknowingly lost control of my own narrative. A week later, my Aunt Karen called me out of nowhere. We rarely spoke privately. Her tone was cautious. "I just wanted to check in." "About what?" "Well, families go through phases." My stomach tightened. "What phase?" Silence. Then she said quietly, "You know you can talk to someone if you're struggling." Struggling. The word landed heavy. I wasn't struggling, but someone clearly believed I was. After we hung up, I sat on my couch replaying every recent interaction. Trying to locate the moment my identity shifted without my permission. That night I opened social media, scrolled through family posts, and noticed something subtle. Melissa had been posting emotional captions for weeks. "Protecting your peace is important. Sometimes family doesn't support your happiness. Healing from jealousy takes time." Hundreds of supportive comments. Relatives agreeing. Friends offering sympathy. I felt cold reading them, because no one asked who she meant. Everyone assumed they already knew. And suddenly I understood. A story about me had been unfolding publicly without ever naming me. My mom insisted we drive separately to the wedding. That way everyone has flexibility. It sounded logical, but historically we always traveled together. When I suggested carpooling, she hesitated. "It might be easier if you have your own space." Own space. Translation I didn't recognize yet. Controlled distance. Melissa asked to see my dress weeks early. She studied the photo longer than expected. "It's bold." "It's just blue," she nodded slowly. "Just don't outshine the bride, okay?" The comment confused me. I wasn't dramatic. I avoided attention. But later I realized she wasn't worried about my outfit. She was reinforcing an image, me as someone seeking attention. I overheard my mother on the phone days before the wedding. She didn't know I was nearby. "Yes, just keep her somewhere calm." Pause. "No, she's not dangerous. Just emotional." I froze, my own mother describing me like a situation needing management. When she noticed me, she quickly ended the call. "Vendor stuff," she said. I nodded, pretended to believe her. But something inside me shifted permanently. That night I sat alone trying to remember the last time my family treated me normally. I couldn't. Every interaction suddenly felt filtered through caution. Soft voices, careful wording, watchful eyes. It's terrifying when people start treating you like a problem you don't recognize in yourself. You begin questioning your own memory, your own emotional reality. I even wondered, did I miss something? Did I unknowingly hurt Melissa? That self-doubt became the quiet weapon used against me. 2 days before the wedding, photos appeared online. Family members smiling at the rehearsal dinner. Everyone present, except me. I hadn't received an invitation. I texted Melissa jokingly, "Looks fun, wish I knew about it." She replied hours later, "Oh, we thought you needed rest." Needed rest? From what? No explanation followed. And no one else mentioned my absence. That was when loneliness stopped feeling accidental. It felt coordinated. My father called the night before the wedding. He rarely called without reason. His tone sounded rehearsed. "Tomorrow is important. Let's keep everything smooth." "Dad, what do you think I'm going to do?" He hesitated. "I just don't want tension." There it was again. Tension that existed only in their imagination. Or more accurately, in a story someone kept feeding them. Lying in bed that night, a disturbing thought appeared. What if the goal wasn't to manage me, but to provoke a reaction? If enough people expected me to cause drama, any normal emotion could be interpreted as proof. Confusion becomes instability. Hurt becomes jealousy. Questions become confrontation. I realized I was walking into an event where my role had already been assigned, and I didn't know the script. Scene 1, the missing text the morning of the wedding. My mom usually sent long, affectionate messages. That day, nothing. Melissa posted selfies with bridesmaids. No tag for me, no mention of me. I told myself they were busy, but the absence felt intentional. When I arrived at the venue parking lot, I noticed something strange. All family cars were already there, yet no one answered my calls. I entered alone. Later, I would learn they had taken photos early, specifically without me present. But at that moment, I simply felt late to something invisible. Relatives greeted me cautiously. Hugs lasted half a second. Eyes studied my face as if searching for emotional instability. One cousin asked quietly, "You okay today?" I smiled politely. "Yes, why wouldn't I be?" She didn't answer, just squeezed my arm sympathetically. That sympathy terrified me more than hostility would have, because sympathy meant they believed something was wrong with me. Standing there, I felt like an actor walking onto a stage halfway through a play already in progress. Everyone else knew the storyline. I didn't even know the genre. And deep down, without evidence yet, I sensed the truth. Someone had been preparing this audience long before I arrived. When the ceremony started, I sat alone near the back. Not assigned, not included, just present, watching my own family laugh together several rows ahead. Melissa never looked back at me. My parents didn't either. That hurt more than exclusion, because it meant my presence didn't disrupt their happiness. My absence had already been emotionally rehearsed. And when the ceremony ended, everything moved toward the reception, toward the moment where the plan would finally become undeniable, where I would learn I wasn't accidentally excluded. I was strategically removed. When the ceremony ended, everyone stood, laughing, hugging, moving toward the reception hall together. Families naturally group up at weddings. Mine didn't. My parents walked ahead with Melissa and several relatives, already deep in conversation. No one turned to include me. No one said, "Come with us." I followed a few steps behind, feeling like an extra guest tagging along with strangers. At the reception entrance, a photographer stopped families for group photos. I watched as mine gathered instantly. My mother fixed Melissa's hair. My dad adjusted his tie. They posed, smiling, complete. The photographer glanced at me standing nearby. "Are you joining?" Before I could answer, Melissa said casually, "Oh, this one's just immediate family." Just immediate family. I stepped back automatically. The flash went off. And for the first time in my life, I felt erased while still physically present. Inside the reception hall, music played softly while guests searched for seating cards. People laughed when they found their names. I scanned the board. Row after row. Table 3, Table 7, Table 11. No name. I checked again, slower, heart racing. Still nothing. That's when the coordinator approached me, the same moment I told you about earlier. "I was informed you might not be staying for dinner." Those words echoed in my head long after she walked away. I stood there holding my purse, suddenly unsure where I was allowed to exist. Around me, guests settled into conversations. Wine glasses filled. Servers moved gracefully between tables. Normal celebration continued, except I wasn't part of it. I sat temporarily at an empty cocktail table near the wall. Two women at the next table whispered. I wasn't trying to listen, but I heard my name. I hope she's okay tonight. I heard she's been having a hard time accepting the marriage. My breath caught. Accepting the marriage? I loved Melissa. We weren't rivals. At least, I thought we weren't. One woman glanced at me sympathetically. The look people give someone unstable but harmless. That look confirmed something devastating. A narrative had already spread through the entire wedding, and I was the only person unaware of it. I started reviewing every memory desperately. Had I complained about the wedding? Had I said something wrong months ago? Nothing fit. Guests gathered as speeches started. I stood near the back since I had no assigned seat. Melissa's maid of honor spoke first. Beautiful speech, funny childhood stories. Then she added something unexpected. Melissa has shown incredible strength dealing with difficult family emotions during this engagement. Laughter softened into sympathy around the room. My stomach dropped. She continued. But love wins when you choose peace. People nodded. Eyes turned subtly toward me, not openly, just enough. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just excluded. I was the emotional obstacle in their love story. My father stood next for his speech. I expected warmth. Instead, his words felt carefully scripted. Families go through challenges, but today we focus on positivity. He didn't say my name. He didn't need to. The implication hung heavy in the room. Guests applauded. And I understood something horrifying. The speeches weren't celebrating unity. They were reinforcing a storyline already planted. A storyline where Melissa overcame a jealous sister. A sister played by me. During cocktail hour, I approached my mother quietly. Why don't I have a seat? Her expression shifted instantly to gentle concern. Oh, honey, we thought leaving early might be easier for you. Easier for what? She lowered her voice. We didn't want you overwhelmed. Overwhelmed by happiness, by dinner, by existing. I felt my throat tighten. Mom, what do you think I've done? She avoided eye contact. That's not important today. That sentence told me everything. They believed something, and protecting that belief mattered more than hearing my truth. I finally approached Melissa near the dance floor. She looked radiant, calm, in control. Her white dress moved perfectly every time she laughed. Guests surrounded her like gravity worked differently around her. When she noticed me, her smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, she said lightly, you made it. Made it. Like I was late to something I had helped build for months. I need to talk to you, I said quietly. She tilted her head. Right now, I nodded. Music pulsed around us. People danced. Glasses clinked. No one noticed my hands shaking. Melissa leaned closer, lowering her voice. You really chose today. My stomach tightened. Chose what? Her expression softened into fake concern. This energy you're bringing. I blinked. What are you talking about? She sighed, dramatically, gently, just loud enough for nearby bridesmaids to hear. Emily, I asked you weeks ago to relax today. The bridesmaids glanced at me. One of them whispered something. They already knew something I didn't. Melissa placed a hand on my arm. Sympathetic, public. You've been under a lot of stress, she said kindly. My chest tightened. I'm not stressed. She gave a small, patient smile. You don't have to pretend. Laughter nearby, not cruel laughter, uncomfortable laughter. The kind people use when they think someone is embarrassing themselves. I suddenly realized I wasn't confronting Melissa. I was being managed. I lowered my voice. What did you tell people? Melissa's expression flickered, then smoothed again. I told them you've been going through a difficult time. My heartbeat pounded. What difficult time? She hesitated just long enough. You know, after losing your job. I froze. I hadn't lost my job. I had switched departments. But suddenly 3 guests nearby looked at me with pity. Pity. Oh, honey, one woman murmured. The room tilted. Melissa squeezed my arm gently. I was trying to protect you. I turned toward my mother. She stood near the dessert table watching us. Watching carefully, I walked to her. "Mom, why does everyone think something's wrong with me?" Her smile tightened instantly. "Not here. Please." She lowered her voice. "You promised you wouldn't create drama today." My stomach dropped. "I didn't," she interrupted softly. "We've talked about this." My father stepped closer, his voice calm, controlled. "Emily, maybe sit down for a minute." Sit down. Like I was fragile, like I was unstable, like they were handling a situation. My cousin approached with a glass of water. "For you," she said gently. I stared at it. I hadn't asked for water. But suddenly people were watching again. Concerned, careful, a circle forming without anyone realizing it. I whispered, "Why is everyone treating me like this?" My mother's eyes softened, almost convincing. "We're just worried about you." That sentence landed like a verdict. I felt myself shrinking, questioning, replaying weeks in my mind. Had I complained too much, been emotional, too sensitive? The DJ announced speeches. Applause erupted. Melissa took the microphone first. She thanked everyone, laughed, cried. Perfect bride performance. Then she said, "And I want to thank someone very special, my sister Emily." The room turned toward me. My heart lifted. Finally, recognition, closure. She smiled warmly. "Emily has always been deeply emotional." Soft laughter. "She feels everything intensely, sometimes more than the rest of us." People nodded sympathetically. My throat tightened. "But today," Melissa continued gently, "I just want her to know she's safe. She's surrounded by people who love her." Applause, warm, comforting, devastating. Because suddenly I understood this wasn't praise. This was positioning. I wasn't the honored sister. I was the fragile one everyone should handle carefully. Melissa had rewritten my identity publicly, and everyone accepted it instantly. I stood frozen as people smiled at me kindly. Kindness can feel cruel when it isn't deserved. After the speech, conversations shifted. People spoke around me, not with me. "Are you okay? You look tired. Take care of yourself." Each comment sounded caring. Each one erased me a little more. I tried laughing normally, tried joining conversations, but every response felt cautious. Measured, like I might break, I searched for my parents. They were busy greeting guests. Proud, relaxed. Aligned with Melissa. And that's when the fear hit me. They believed this version of me too. I found Melissa near the hallway leading outside. "No more pretending," I said quietly. "What are you doing?" She looked almost relieved. Finally alone, her smile faded. "You were never supposed to come tonight." The words hit like ice. "I'm your sister," she exhaled slowly. "You make everything complicated, Emily." My chest tightened. "I helped plan this wedding. And you needed boundaries." Boundaries. The word felt clinical. Planned. "Why are you telling people I'm unstable?" She met my eyes calmly. "Because if I didn't, you would have ruined today." I stepped back. "I never would." She didn't argue. That hurt more. Instead, she said softly, "People believe what protects peace." Silence stretched. Then she added, "And honestly, they were ready to believe it." That sentence broke something inside me, not anger. Not rage, just exhaustion. I realized I wasn't fighting one person. I was fighting a family narrative years in the making. I walked outside to breathe. Night air hit my face. Music thumped behind closed doors. For a moment, I considered leaving. But I told myself, stay. Don't give them a reason, so I stayed. Alone near the parking area, watching guests laugh through the windows, waiting for someone to come check on me, my mother, my father, anyone. No one came. 30 minutes, 40, an hour. The music changed. Lights dimmed. Cars began leaving. I went back inside. The ballroom was nearly empty. Staff clearing tables. My stomach dropped. "Where is everyone?" I asked a waiter. "They left for the after party," he said casually. After party, I blinked. "Where?" He checked a note. "Private venue. Family transportation arranged." Family transportation. Cold realizations spread through me. I ran outside. The parking lot was almost empty. Our family cars were gone. The shuttle buses were gone. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "You seemed overwhelmed tonight. We thought it was best to let you rest. We'll talk tomorrow." I stared at the screen. They didn't forget me. They decided. They chose. They left me behind. On purpose. At my sister's wedding. Like removing a problem from a room. Standing alone under parking lot lights, I understood something terrifying. My absence was part of their perfect ending. I sat on the curb, dress wrinkled, makeup fading, guests driving past without noticing. I wasn't crying yet, just empty, like my life had quietly shifted into a version where I no longer belonged. That night, I took a taxi home alone. No goodbye, no closure, just silence. And I didn't know it then, but that moment would divide my life into two timelines before they left me, and everything that happened after. The taxi driver didn't ask questions. I was grateful for that. Streetlights passed across the window in slow rhythm while my reflection stared back at me, mascara smudged, hair falling loose, dress still too formal for the empty streets. Every few minutes I checked my phone. No calls. No apologies. No "are you okay?" Just silence. When we stopped outside my apartment, the driver hesitated. "You want me to wait until you get inside?" That simple kindness almost broke me. "I'm okay," I said. I wasn't. Inside, the apartment felt unfamiliar. Too quiet. I kicked off my heels and sat on the floor instead of the couch. For the first time that night, I cried. Not dramatic crying, not loud sobbing. Just steady tears falling while one question repeated in my head. How does a family decide someone doesn't belong anymore? They hadn't rejected me in anger. They had done it calmly, collectively, comfortably, which meant this wasn't a moment. It was a decision made long before the wedding. I slept in my dress, phone still in my hand, waiting for morning to fix everything. Morning didn't. I woke up to sunlight and hope. Hope is stubborn like that. Maybe they felt bad. Maybe they realized how hurtful it looked. Maybe my phone buzzed. A family group message. Photos flooded the chat. Melissa and Daniel laughing at the after party, my parents dancing, my cousins cheering. Captions full of heart emojis. No one mentioned me, not once. I stared at the screen, scrolling, searching. Finally, my mother texted privately, "We thought giving you space was best." Space, that word again. I typed, "You left me." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply. That was the moment something inside me changed. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly. I stopped trying to explain myself, because I realized something painful. They weren't misunderstanding me. They understood perfectly. They just preferred a version of reality where I wasn't inconvenient. 2 days later, my parents came over. They brought leftover wedding cake, like nothing had happened. My mother smiled gently. "How are you feeling?" Feeling, not what happened, not "we're sorry." I swallowed. "You left me at the wedding." My father sighed like this conversation exhausted him. "We didn't leave you," he said calmly. "You stepped away." I stared at him. "I went outside for air." My mother placed the cake on the counter. "You seemed overwhelmed. Melissa was worried you might create a scene." The words landed slowly. Create a scene, so this had been discussed. Planned, agreed upon. "You believed I would ruin her wedding." Silence. My father avoided eye contact. My mother said softly, "We were trying to protect everyone." Everyone, except me. "You didn't even check if I had a ride home." My mother frowned gently. "You're independent, Emily. You always figure things out." Independence suddenly sounded like abandonment with nicer wording. After that conversation, something subtle happened. Family calls slowed. Invitations stopped. Holidays became optional, then forgotten. No one announced a separation, it just faded. Being abandoned once hurts. Being slowly erased hurts more. Months passed, then a year. I saw family updates online. Birthdays, vacations, Christmas photos, everyone together, one chair missing. Mine. That year was harder than I ever admitted. Work felt heavy. Friends asked about my family. I learned to answer casually. "Oh, they're busy." I told that lie so often it started sounding true. Some nights I replayed the wedding in my head, wondering if I really had done something wrong. If maybe I was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. That doubt stayed longer than the betrayal. One evening, I almost called my mother, just to fix things, just to belong again. My finger hovered over her contact. Then I remembered standing alone in that parking lot, and I put the phone down. I started therapy. Not because I thought I was broken, but because I needed someone neutral to tell me whether my reality made sense. During one session, I described the wedding, every detail, every conversation, every apology I never received. The therapist listened quietly, then asked one question: "Who benefited from you being labeled the problem?" I froze, because I had never asked that. Life slowly expanded beyond the hurt. I changed jobs, moved apartments, met new friends who knew me without history, without assumptions, without labels. For the first time, I wasn't the emotional daughter. I was just Emily, and I discovered something unexpected. People trusted me, respected me, came to me for advice. No one treated me like I might fall apart, which meant maybe I never had been the problem. The version of me my family described didn't exist anywhere else, only inside their story. I accepted a leadership role at work. Terrifying, exciting. During my first presentation, I noticed something strange. I wasn't nervous about speaking. I was nervous about being dismissed, about not being believed. But when the meeting ended, my boss said, "You're incredibly composed under pressure." Composed. The opposite of everything my family believed about me. I sat in my car afterward and laughed, then cried again. Because validation from strangers healed wounds my own family never acknowledged. By year 5, contact with my family was almost non-existent. Occasional holiday texts, generic birthday messages, no real conversations. I stopped expecting reconciliation, and strangely, peace followed. I built routines, friendships, a life that didn't revolve around proving my worth. I learned something powerful. Healing sometimes means accepting that closure never comes. But I didn't know yet that closure was already moving toward me. Quietly, patiently, waiting for the right moment. It was a Tuesday evening, ordinary. I was cooking dinner when my phone rang. Unknown number, I almost ignored it. Then something told me to answer. "Hello!" Silence. Then I heard it, my mother's voice, crying. Real crying, not controlled, not careful. "Emily, we need to talk." My stomach tightened. 10 years of distance, and suddenly they needed me. I leaned against the counter. "What happened?" She sobbed harder. "It's Melissa." And in that moment, I realized the story I thought had ended at a wedding was only the beginning. Breath. "It's Melissa, she needs you." The words landed strangely. Needs me. After a decade of silence, I waited. She didn't continue. Instead, she asked quietly, "Can you come home?" Home. The word felt foreign now. "I don't live there anymore," I said gently. "I know," she whispered, "but this is serious." For the first time in 10 years, my family wasn't managing me. They were asking. I sat at my kitchen table. Part of me wanted to refuse immediately. Self-respect said no. But curiosity won. "What happened to Melissa?" Silence stretched long enough to feel intentional. Then my mother said something unexpected. "She's saying things about the wedding." My heartbeat slowed. "What things?" Another pause. "She says we made a mistake." I hadn't visited my parents' house in almost a decade. The street looked smaller, the trees older. Memory has a way of shrinking places once they lose emotional power. As I parked, I noticed something unsettling. 3 unfamiliar cars outside, lights on in every room, tension in the air. Not celebration, not normal family chaos. Something heavier. My father opened the door before I knocked. He looked older, tired. His confidence, the calm authority I remembered, seemed cracked. "Emily," he said my name carefully, like he wasn't sure he still had the right. "Hi, Dad." We stood there awkwardly for a second before he stepped aside. "Come in." Everyone was there, my mother, my aunt, 2 cousins, even Daniel, Melissa's husband. The room went quiet when I walked in. No one rushed to hug me. No dramatic reunion, just tension. Daniel stood up first. He looked exhausted, eyes red. "Thank you for coming," he said. I nodded politely. Then I noticed Melissa. She sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket despite the warm room. Her posture smaller than I had ever seen. Not radiant, not controlled, fragile. When she saw me, her face crumpled, and she started crying. For 10 years, I imagined confronting her. Strong, composed, prepared. Instead, I felt strangely calm, like watching a storm from inside a safe building. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi." Silence stretched between us. Finally, she said, "I need to tell you something." Melissa's hands trembled. "I've been in therapy," she began. No one moved. No one interrupted. She swallowed hard. And my therapist asked me to revisit moments where I manipulated situations to avoid responsibility. The word manipulated landed heavily in the room. My mother shifted uncomfortably. Melissa continued. The wedding keeps coming up. My chest tightened. I know, she said, voice breaking, that we told everyone you were unstable. She looked directly at me. And that wasn't true. The room held its breath. For 10 years I had questioned myself, and now the lie was being named out loud. I didn't speak. I needed to hear everything. Melissa wiped her eyes. I told Mom and Dad you were jealous, that you were emotional, that you might embarrass me. My mother whispered, Melissa. But Melissa shook her head. No, she deserves to know. She turned back to me. I was afraid of you. Confusion flickered through me. Afraid, she nodded slowly. You were the only person who saw through me. Melissa's voice grew quieter. When Daniel and I got engaged, our relationship wasn't stable. Daniel stared at the floor. We were fighting constantly, she continued. I thought you might notice. Memories flashed. Late-night arguments I overheard. Tension during planning meetings, things I dismissed at the time. I needed the wedding to be perfect, Melissa said. Because if it wasn't, people might ask questions. My heartbeat quickened. And you, she whispered, always asked questions. I wasn't removed because I was unstable. I was removed because I was observant. Melissa continued, voice shaking. So I created a narrative first. I told everyone you were overwhelmed, sensitive, unpredictable. My father looked away. My mother began crying quietly. Melissa's words fell one after another. And when you confronted me on the dance floor, it confirmed the story I had already told. I remembered that moment vividly. The looks, the pity, the containment. It had been staged long before I arrived. Melissa inhaled deeply. When you went outside, Mom asked what we should do. My mother covered her mouth. Melissa continued anyway. I said it would be better if you didn't come to the after party. The room felt suddenly smaller. I told them you needed space. My father whispered. We thought it was best. Melissa shook her head through tears. No, you trusted me. Then she looked at me. I abandoned you. Hearing the truth didn't feel victorious. It felt heavy. Because the pain I carried for 10 years had been preventable, I finally spoke. Why now? Melissa's shoulders collapsed. Because everything fell apart. Daniel spoke for the first time. We're divorcing. Silence filled the room. Melissa nodded weakly. The marriage wasn't healthy. It never was. She wiped her face. And during therapy, I realized the wedding wasn't the beginning of our problems. Her eyes met mine again. It was the moment I chose image over honesty. She swallowed. And you paid the price. I expected anger, rage, vindication. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Distance. The version of me who needed their validation had healed years ago. Their confession came too late to define me. I'm sorry, Melissa whispered. My mother added quickly, we all are. My father nodded. We should have protected you. The apology hung in the air, waiting, heavy. 10 years earlier, I would have begged for these words. Now I simply listened, because healing had already happened without them. I asked quietly, why did you call me crying? Melissa's voice cracked. My therapist said I needed to face the person I hurt most. She hesitated. And I think I'm losing everyone. For the first time, I saw it clearly. They weren't calling to restore me. They were calling to restore themselves. I sat back calmly and realized something powerful. I no longer needed justice, because time had already delivered it. But the real justice moment was still coming. Everyone watched me. My parents, Melissa, Daniel, even my aunt leaned forward slightly. They were waiting for something dramatic. Anger, tears, accusations. Closure performed loudly, but 10 years had changed me. I wasn't the woman from that parking lot anymore. I folded my hands calmly and spoke slowly. Thank you for telling me the truth. Relief moved through the room immediately, too quickly, as if they believed forgiveness had already happened. Melissa exhaled. My mother reached for my hand. Oh, Emily, we can finally move forward. I gently pulled my hand back, and that's when the atmosphere changed. For the first time in my life, I controlled the emotional temperature of the room. I need you to understand something, I said softly. No anger, no raised voice, just clarity. The apology matters. They nodded eagerly. But it doesn't erase 10 years. Silence fell. I continued. I built a life without this family. I healed without explanations. I learned to trust myself again alone. My father swallowed. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Melissa whispered, I know. I shook my head gently. No, you don't. You didn't just leave me at a wedding. My voice remained steady. You agreed I was disposable. The words landed harder than shouting ever could. No one argued. Because they knew it was true, I stood up slowly, not to leave, but to reclaim space. For years, I said, I believed something was wrong with me. My voice softened. I questioned my memory, my emotions, my worth. I looked directly at Melissa. You didn't just protect your wedding. You protected a lie about who I was. Melissa began crying again. I know, I hate myself for it. I shook my head. This isn't about punishment. And that confused them. They expected revenge. Instead, I gave them honesty. I forgive you, I said quietly. My mother gasped in relief. Melissa sobbed harder, but I raised my hand gently. I forgive you so I don't carry this anymore. Pause. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. The relief vanished. I continued calmly. I'm not coming back into the family the way things were. My father looked stunned. You mean you're leaving again? I never came back, I said gently. I came here to listen. I explained carefully. I'm willing to rebuild something new, slowly, honestly. I looked at each of them. But I won't pretend the past didn't happen just to make everyone comfortable. My mother nodded through tears. We'll do whatever it takes. I smiled faintly. For once, I need actions, not promises. Before I could sit down, Melissa spoke again. There's something else. The room froze. She wiped her eyes. I didn't just fear you exposing problems in my marriage. She hesitated. I was jealous of you. That surprised everyone, even me. You were always authentic, she said quietly. You didn't perform happiness. You didn't need approval. Her voice cracked. I thought if people compared us, they would see I wasn't as strong as you. The realization settled slowly. The wedding betrayal had never been about me failing. It had been about me being a mirror she couldn't face. I hugged my mother before leaving. It felt different, gentler, less dependent. I shook my father's hand first, then he pulled me into a hug. Melissa cried as she hugged me. I don't expect anything, she whispered. That's good, I said softly, because healing takes time. Outside, the night air felt familiar. 10 years earlier, I had stood alone outside a wedding venue feeling abandoned. Now I walked toward my car feeling complete. Same night sky. Different woman, we didn't suddenly become a perfect family. There were awkward conversations, long silences, careful rebuilding. Some invitations I accepted, some I declined. And for the first time, my boundaries were respected. Melissa continued therapy. Our relationship became honest, not close, but real. My parents stopped minimizing my feelings. They listened more, spoke less. And I learned something unexpected. Reconciliation isn't about returning to the past. It's about creating something healthier than what existed before. Meanwhile, my life continued expanding. Career thriving. Friends who felt like chosen family. Peace that no longer depended on approval. The wedding stopped being my defining memory. It became simply a turning point. Sometimes justice doesn't look like revenge. Sometimes justice is time revealing truth. Sometimes it's realizing the people who rejected you were protecting their own fears. And sometimes, the greatest victory is discovering you were never broken at all. They left me at a wedding believing I was the problem. 10 years later, they called me crying because the truth finally caught up with them. But by then, I had already saved myself. I want to ask you something. If you were in my place, would you have forgiven them? Could you rebuild a relationship after being abandoned like that? Or do some betrayals change things forever? Tell me honestly, where are you watching from tonight? And what would you have done if your own family walked away when you needed them most? I read your stories, and sometimes your experiences help someone else feel less alone. Subscribe to Marrianne Tales. I'll see you in the next story.